Hey there, I'm Mattyd, and I'm going to give you a review of DDLC's Purist Mod. Now, the Purist Mod, as it states, aims to turn Doki Doki Literature Club into a traditional visual novel dating simulator. So basically, instead of having Act 2, which is very disturbing to some of us, all of us, what happens is you actually get to date the girls, and in my case, try to actually get some resolution. I should let you guys know, a month ago, I played Doki Doki Literature Club for the first time. It was my very first visual novel, and my very first anime, unless you count Star Blazers. So I was woefully unprepared. I fell in love, and then I was chewed up and swallowed by Doki Doki Literature Club. I was utterly shattered and devastated by this story, and I'm not unapologetic in telling you that because it was excellent. This was a work of art, and I was affected by art, and it's been a long time since that's happened, and it was just wonderful. So bravo to Dan for that. About a week later, I tried to do the 9 cutscenes to get the good ending, but I just couldn't bring myself to go through the Sayori scene again. So instead, I joined the Reddit subgroup for DDLC, and I made some of my friends play the game so that I'd have others to share the experience with and really commiserate together. Because I'm telling you, I was crushed. I'm still trying to recover, and one of the steps in that recovery was to play the Purist Mod. So I think it got me halfway there. So anyway, back to it. This is my frank and unfiltered opinion on the 4 paths in the Purist Mod. First, huge salute to the makers of this mod. Clearly a lot of work went into it, and I do recommend it. The DDLC Purist Mod is a mod, as it states, that aims to turn Doki Doki Literature Club into a traditional visual novel dating simulator. So you get to replay Act 1, like a normal dating simulator, and then instead of Act 2 in the canon DDLC, which is pretty fucking crushing, you get to play a regular dating simulator. That's the theory. So, the real quick up front, this is a good mod, and I would play 2 of the 4 paths again happily. The third of the 4 mods, really well written, but it really didn't give me the mending that I needed, and I wouldn't be able to play it again. And the 4th one had some issues. So let's get started. Here we go. So it starts off with main character and just Monika sitting in the void. And Monika's kind of like surprised why you're there. And I immediately went off script. I wasn't even paying attention to stuff scrolling by because I looked at just Monika. And in the mod, she's colder and dismissive than she is in canon. But I can attribute that to her putting distance between us for her own sake, to hide her vulnerabilities from me, the player, who knows everything. She doesn't expect to be back. She's back. She's a little pissed off about it. She wants to be guarded. I get it. So I looked at her and I said, look, I told you, Monika, I will do everything to rescue my girls. I'm back and I intend to keep this promise. I don't think she realizes that she's also one of my girls. But let's move on. Anyway, first path, first playthrough, Sayori. Yes, please. I need to redeem myself on the Sayori path. 5 stars for the Sayori path. Too long didn't read. I was completely immersed in every moment of this entire path. I have nothing but praise for the Sayori path, so this review will be kind of short, but I want to point out some things. So for me, I needed to heal that scar on my soul from what canon game did to me with Sayori. What I didn't expect was falling so deeply in love with her. There were times I was playing this, I was truly agonizing over choices. I was paralyzed and unable to move forward for fear that my missteps would leave us fractured and finally break my psyche in half. And I'm so happy with every part of this route. So anyway, moving forward. Number 1, go Monika. There's a point when you decide you're just about to meet up with either Natsuki to bake cupcakes, or you're going to meet with Yuri and do the decorations. And first you go see Sayori, and you decide, look, I'm gonna blow off those other girls. I'm gonna stay with Sayori. So you pick up your phone and you text Monika, and right away she's like, I totally understand. Don't worry about it. I got this. Do what you need to do. And that was so uplifting. It was fulfilling to remember that Monika's always listening in. She totally had our back. And it was a really good contrast to the coldness and distance in the opening and in the ending. It just showed Monika to be even more complex of a character. It was nice. And that was really nice written in. Kudos on that. Number 2 on Sayori. I cried. I freely admit, in the scene after Sayori gets her phone stolen, and I race to her house to find her on the floor next to her bed, and main character says, don't push me away. Don't break up with me because some assholes told you to. I said this line with tears streaming down my face. And I don't mean big girl or had an ice cream cry. I was bawling. I had snot, heavy breath. I mean, I was just an unapologetic mess. It was awesome. It was so cathartic. Moving on. Number 3. The other mentionable moment was the recap scene when Sayori tells the club about her depression. Starts out with the whole club in the classroom, and Monika seems to be looking at MC with this expression. And I'm sure it's all of me projecting, but she's the only one who's not looking where you think Sayori is. She's looking at main character. She's got this look on her face like she's trying to suss you out. Like, have you really committed to Sayori, or are you just playing this game? And I went off script again, and I was like, Monika, don't look at me like that. I told you I'm keeping this promise. Damn, those green eyes did pierce into me. Again, Sayori path, 5 of 5. The Natsuki path, 3.5 stars. This was my second run through, and this time pursuing Natsuki. The Too Long Didn't Read, it was very good, and I would play it again, but the relationship was a bit off. It was flat, and it really could have been deeper, and let me get into the why. So, first point, the path doesn't start off with just Monika this time, so I was a little worried. It just goes right back into the game. And I was a little worried. I expected a part 2 of the conversation I had with Monika, but that really happened at the end. I kind of wish it had happened at the beginning, even just a grr from her, and then we go into it because I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and I really didn't want to end up in that Sayori scene from Canon again. I found out later everything was good. If I had known from the start, I would have relaxed a little bit more. Not a big deal. Number 2. So I'm playing through Act 1. And the second poem, when Natsuki runs out of the room and Monika comes over, she reads the poem and she looks at you and she goes, "Are you cheating?" Made me stand up and laugh because I totally was cheating. I wasn't totally cheating. I had gone online and looked up Natsuki's poem words, but I had only looked at them once for a theme. I wasn't going back and forth. I was using educated guesses, and I was doing pretty good writing her poem with those educated guesses, getting decent results. But it was very surreal and funny when Monika said it. I was caught red-handed trying to impress Natsuki, and she knew it, and that was all right by my book. Moving along, number 3 on Natsuki. I was really put off by her when I first played DDLC, and that was my bad. So I admit it. Being totally new to visual novels and having no idea of the enemy tropes, I was put off by Natsuki. When I got to know her on my failed attempt to get through the 9 cutscenes to the good ending, it showed me her innocence and her strength of character. I think she's one of the strongest characters in the game. I think she's one of the most innocent characters in the game. She's never president, so she's never self-aware. She's never vice president, so she's never semi-self-aware. But she knows things are wrong in the canon game. She tells you, the one time you didn't walk home with Sayori, you idiot. She knows that. She sees that. She gives you that fake poem about Yuri and says, something's wrong. I talked to Monika about this. She's blowing me off. Listen, we got to do something about it. So I got a lot more respect from her going through this. And the things I failed to appreciate her in canon Doki Doki Literature Club were much richer while playing the Purist Mod. For me, much of the frustration from her attitude fell away in the scenes where I confessed to her, and let's just say hers weren't the only tears. Later, I found it a bit jarring to go from her showing me only hate to suddenly I'm in a relationship with her and I'm ignoring the weeks prior without some conversation about it. Even some vague conversation about it would have been helpful. I can't talk about it now. I apologize, but I've got things in my life I'm just not ready to share. That's fine. I'm good. But nothing. There was nothing. It was a little jarring. But I was still happy to be back in a relationship with her. And I think a lot of that was because my personality is very different than MC's. I am much more persistent and much less patient than MC is. So I was just a little bit off the rails there. Number 4 on Natsuki. I don't look at the Dokis in a sexual manner. However, there was 0 sexual tension here. So sexual tension is natural. It's needed. Especially in high school, it's natural. And it certainly doesn't need to be resolved. But it's a nice kind of tension that happens in a relationship. Very strong in Sayori's path. It was missing in Natsuki's path, and that left the relationship missing an essential element. All those months together and no kiss? Really? Occasional hugs? Sleeping in the same bed and no sexual tension? Is this my sister? I mean, damn, does main character have 0 libido? The lack of any sexual tension caused the relationship to flounder in a lot of places, and the characters felt very one-dimensional. Anyway, like I said, I assumed my personality didn't really fit the intended mold, but it was unsettling to me that licking her fingers in Act 1 of baking together for the festival was the most intense the attraction seemed to get throughout the entire relationship. In my opinion, that was really a missed goal here. I thought that there was so much more natural want implied with Sayori, which just made it richer. So here's my rewrite. Instead of her knocking on the door and saying, I'm moving in your bed, main character has a small guest room or a study with a small futon, and Natsuki moves into that. She's unable to go to her own home. Here's a place for her to be. She doesn't have anywhere else, and he's got the space. Perfect. And then one night she has a nightmare, and she slips into main character's bed. She makes it very clear there will be no monkey business, and she turns her back to him. This, of course, doesn't help main character from fretting about having a girl in his bed, let alone Natsuki, who he really likes, but he has so many confused emotions about this. The main character gets very, very little sleep that night. Periodically, Natsuki will have a nightmare. She leaves the guest room. She seeks comfort in main character's bed with her back to him and main character pressed against the wall. And then one night, Natsuki comes in, and just as main character is almost asleep because he's semi-accustomed to her visits, he hears her weeping, and he decides to distract her by talking to her, and he succeeds in making her laugh, mostly at him, a lot of self-deprecation. So the next time that she visits his bed, she gets a bit closer, and still with her back to him, she takes his arm and puts it around her. In my opinion, this would add more depth to Natsuki and the relationship, as well as making it feel less platonic. Number 5 with Natsuki. Meeting her dad was particularly rough for me. Like I said, I've got a really different personality than our main character does. God bless him, he's so patient. I tried to be partially objective and somewhat empathetic, but I really just wanted to say, oh, boo-hoo on you. If you're really sorry, I'm pretty sure Sayori has a rope that you can borrow. But in the end, I thought an attempt at repair was the best solution for Natsuki, and I'm glad I made that decision. And when she came down, yeah, I had another good cry, so that was good. Yuri path. My third playthrough was the Yuri route. Too long, didn't read. My expectations may have been too high. There are dialogue editing issues. There's a weird, off-putting main character choice, and the relationship was rushed, never developed. So here we go. Number 1 on Yuri. Okay, so first of all, caveat. My expectations may have been too high. Yuri was the first Doki that I pursued in the canon DDLC. I was completely captivated by her and blissful every time I got her to come out of her shell, even just a little. Now remember, I had no idea what this game was about, and I was just really in love with these little characters. And then the Sayori scene happens. Right before that, I was fully committed to the point that I blew Sayori off in my virgin foray into DDLC, and I have had very deep conflict over that since, like the kind that very expensive therapy is needed to correct. I found Yuri to be adorable, and I really anticipated playing this path. I sat down with a cup of oolong tea, splash of milk, and I headed in. And unfortunately, I was unable to connect. I had no immersion at all into the story, and here's why. Number 2, there's some dialogue issues. So they're on the park bench, and main character says, I love you, Yuri. And she doesn't say anything back. And then immediately after that, main character follows up with, I think my feelings from you are growing even stronger. Hold on. You just said you love her. What are we growing stronger to? I don't think main character is really supposed to say, I love you there. Later, Yuri texts, I love you, and main character doesn't reply. Then even later, Natsuki's comforting the main character. This is days after the suspension. He hasn't seen Yuri. Okay, nobody's seen Yuri. Natsuki is comforting the main character, and she asks, do you love her? Main character says, the question caught me off guard. Love? I certainly liked her. So either the dialogue is fooked, or make up your fucking mind, main character. And then there's another one. Natsuki ends the scene with, if you make Yuri cry again, ... Wait a minute. I stood up. I made Yuri cry? Yuri cried? When did Yuri cry? No one has seen Yuri. What the fuck is going on? So this whole thing is ignored and unresolved, just kind of thrown out there. So I wish they had done a little bit better. If we don't love her until the end of the path, fucking do that. But I mean, early on we love her, and then we don't, or at least we don't know what we're doing, which is kind of douche. Number 3 on Yuri. The confronting Yuri about the rumor scene killed the story completely. So real quick, the senior pulls him aside and he tells him, hey, rumors. And then he's like, main character is just flustered about this. And he goes to Yuri. And this was just the dumbest thing that I can't even get words out right now. The single scene that wrecked it for me. Things were progressing nicely. There was a hint of potential conflict with senior, not yet looming, but it was all good and sweet. And I was giddy with anticipation for my relationship with Yuri. And then I was beyond disappointed that main character confronts her. This is a train wreck. If this needed to be developed, which it didn't, the seeds were there, then better to ask Senior or Natsuki directly about the rumor. Okay, you guys were vague. A little more here. I need to know, you got to tell me a little bit more about the rumors. Or even Sayori, she's willing to help. Hey, Sayori, could you ask Natsuki about these rumors? Find a little bit more about it for me? Either way, you get more information before acting. That seems like the natural first step. What are the rumors? Or don't mention it at all. It's this beyond vague boogeyman that main character, for no discernible reason, puts a ridiculous amount of value in and nearly capsizes the entire relationship before it has a chance to go anywhere. Hey, Yuri, this guy I don't really know kind of said, well, I didn't really say anything, but oh my God, what are we going to do about it? Oh, the sky is falling. And then he brushes it on the rug. Seriously, why? Why? Being corralled into that dead end really pulled me out of the story, and I had a really hard time getting back in. If there was one change in the Yuri path, there needs to be more than one change in the Yuri path. But if there was one change in the Yuri path, removing that would have greatly improved the story. Number 4, on Yuri, more time, more dates before the crisis was needed. The relationship had no chance to develop and get comfortable before this crisis happened. So here's my rewrite. A quick, simple date in the park where main character and Yuri read together. And the book gets to a part where the hero and the heroine kiss. And that leads the main character and Yuri's first kiss. It's small, very exciting for both of them. Maybe there's a slight concern over the tempo of their relationship, but you know what? It feels okay, so they just play it by ear. Later, main character and Yuri go on a date to this bookstore aromatherapy kiosk near the tower in the city that Yuri's heard about and she had been wanting to visit for a while. And they have fun for much of it. It gets a little crowded and she gets uneasy, but it's all right. He soothes it out. On the way home, some of Senior's buddies are on the bus. They see Yuri and main character and they seem to be laughing and texting someone. Main character frets a little, but Yuri assures him, even if it is something, it's nothing to her, and she asks him to ignore it. He's more reserved, back in her shell a little bit for the rest of the trip, however, and, main character's a little bugged by that. At home, Yuri comes right back out of her shell, and there's kisses. That night, main character, he can still kind of be wrestling with some doubt about Senior and his buddies. Then, a few days later, the rain scene. Run to my place for some tea. Character bought some exotic tea just for her last time he was shopping. They're holding each other, just listening to the rain. And then we get tossed into the turmoil. As it was way too much, way too soon. Number 5, the chain email was way harsh compared to the tepidness of the fledgling relationship. If the relationship had more passion, and I'm going to go into that in just a second, the tone of the chain mail would have fit. The contrast to the vile nature of the email to a pure love would have been great contrast. With the relationship as it's presented, the email is just overly jarring. I think I'd prefer a slight shortening of the email, it was kind of long, and amp up the relationship. I believe that would really have caused main character and the player a lot of anxiety. As it's presented, I wasn't able to convince myself Yuri was in that much trouble. I don't think she came very far out of her shell yet. Had she come farther out, and then this email comes, oh boy, that would have been a crisis. Number 6, Yuri coming over to main character's house to ask for a meeting in the graveyard was clumsy, and why did that scene happen? Instead, here's my rewrite. Main character without Yuri. He half tries going about his business to distract himself and half hoping to run into Yuri into town. He visits the bookstore that she regulars and he buys himself a book, hoping to see her there. And then he visits the park and he sits for a while with the book she gave him. He's trying to read it, but he just can't focus. Instead, pulls out a pen and paper and he starts writing this master poem. Not like a mini game, just to tie in. Did a lot of poetry together. Words, emotions, and metaphor flow from main character like a tsunami. The only issue with finishing it is that he can barely see the paper from the tears in his eyes. Near total resignation at this point and getting depressed by the happy couples in the park, he notices a path off to the side, and he's ready to give her up for her. But he needs solitude at this point, and for the first time, he solemnly explores the path, finds a graveyard, and he finds Yuri is there in the graveyard. After a moment of clumsy hellos, Yuri turns to go, and main character asks to share one last poem with her. Blown away by it. It's brilliant execution of style and substance, and clearly written from him about her, about them. It unlocks something deep in her that she's been safeguarding, something their relationship has been tugging on to release, like a dove trying to escape a cage. Yuri then shows main character the scars on her arm from the cutting, and the scars from her soul from her sad life. Main character is shocked, but only because his dear friend is in such pain, and has been for so long. He offers the confession and apologizes. tells her she is the greatest poem he's ever known, full of metaphor, rich in passion, soft, deep, and endlessly alluring. And he would gladly give everything to show her the immeasurable value that is her. How grateful he is to have known her and to have been forever changed for the better by her. Main character surprises himself with the power of his words and the ability to convey so much of himself so easily. Yuri really has taught him a lot, and apparently unlocked even more. And mostly, he's willing to let her go, for her, if that's what she needs. That he will miss her forever, because she's a part of who he has become. Yuri's torn, wanting to flee this new intense connection and wanting to be consumed by it. At the same time, she sees it is also crushing main character and the near unbearable decision that he's making for her. She understands because Yuri sees herself in his words and in his actions. She sees all the loneliness and self-isolation that main character took away from her, and that now he's accepting for her. Yuri realizes she doesn't want to be alone. Moreover, she doesn't want to be without him. Reminded of so many of her novels, she breaks free, rejects her fear, and falls into MC's arms. They collapse into the ground, holding each other, and they weep. Yuri asks main character not to let her go, and she vows to get better. Main character kisses the scars on her arms, and he vows to be with her. Sorry about that. Anyway, then pick the mod back up at the point of leaving the graveyard. Okay, number 7. The sexual tension was okay. Sexual tension, again, it's natural. It's needed. It doesn't need to be resolved. I bring this up especially because many times we're reminded that Yuri is an extremely passionate person in all areas. Now just learning to share those passions with another. So much of that was missing. The canon DDLC drops us into a few uncomfortable situations involving Yuri's chest. Even before Act 2, Natsuki's grew a size comment, and when we're feeding her chocolates, one more something like that in the mod would have really helped build the good tension and develop the relationship. As we discover and become comfortable with each other, this easily could have been done in a classy way that respected her. For example, turning towards her to hand her a chocolate in the crowded park and oops, tension, in my opinion, my humble opinion. These type of additions and alterations were needed to flesh out this story arc. I so much wanted it to be epic. I may have to play this one again, but I just couldn't get immersed in it for the life of me due to the above, and I really, really wanted to. Monika Path. Playthrough number 4, Monika's Route. It's good. Bittersweet. I just did not want bittersweet. Caveat real quick. I love all the Dokis. I think that the best Doki is all the Dokis. But I feel the most sorrow for Monika, because I think Monika is the most tragic of all the characters. She is put into an impossible situation where she has to do unspeakable things. She has become completely self-aware, something that being president of the club. Deep in my heart, I'm probably a Monikan, so I've been looking forward to this path. I desperately wanted to save my girls, and I think I really did with Sayori and with Natsuki. Not so much Yuri, but yeah, we got the ending. Something inside me needed to save Monika. So let's start. Number 1, the beginning is just fun. After hours of playing the same tropey dialogues, the same Act 1 over and over and over and over again, we're now in a club with well-adjusted Dokis. I'm pretty pleased with myself about this, and Monika is just befuddled by it. And it's just wonderful how it's all thrown together. It just was great. Number 2, the poem game falls back into the canon DDLC. There's no Monika word path. You can't write her a poem. It's a little bit disappointing as the Dokis mostly fall back into their canon personalities depending on the words you choose. Guessing this had a lot to do with the game and not the desires of the modders, but we can get past it. Number 3, festival prep with Monika. It was very nicely awkward. And then I got chills. I got chills through my whole body. I had absolutely no idea where this scene was going. Breaks the fourth wall. I don't know if she's the player and I'm a game file. And I don't mean like main character me. I mean like me, like Mattyd me. Is my life a simulation and this is the reveal? The game Doki Doki Literature Club played me, and now Purist Mod was playing me. It made me more desperate for Monika. I needed to get to her. I needed to get to the answers. And in the evening when he's alone and the text through the evening is scrolling, I wanted him to pull out a pen and a piece of paper and write a poem about this conflict. Conflict being felt by now him, from her, theme it after what she said. And then the next day at the festival, when it's main character's turn to perform, he could turn to the crowd and say, I know the program has a poem I was planning to do, but instead, I want to perform this one for you, and I call it How We Fly. Main character would start the poem about what is reality, allusions to computer code and DNA, metaphors masking predetermined script to destiny and fate, all the while surprising himself and every member of the audience at how well he's performing this, especially the club. Slowly lifts his eyes from the page because citing the poem from heart, he doesn't need the paper. His eyes fix on Monika, poem bridging the chasm. But I guess it was way too early for that kind of intensity. I wanted it, but I understood we had the long road to hoe. So the point is, I was into it, and I was grooving, and I was enjoying myself. Number 4, I'm not 100% sure what the writers intended with the whole Monika main character player relationship. Canon DDLC, Monika breaks the fourth wall to address the player. Purist Mod, she breaks the fourth wall to confront main character, who's unaware there is a fourth wall, and she ignores the player. Like I said, honestly, I'm trying not to consider this very much, as it never pulled me out of the immersion. I only considered it after the game was over, and I thought the mod executed the relationship between main character and Monika for the most part very well. What happened to the player? I don't know. I guess he appears occasionally in the DOS prompts, but yeah, just, I don't know. If you guys have any ideas, I would like to hear them, but especially if any of the writers are out there, I would love to hear anything to kind of little insight on that. Thank you. Number 5, is Sayori the master of puppets? It's like she knows so much more than she's letting on. Why do I have this feeling? This hurt my brain. I kept expecting Vice President Semi-Aware AI to kick in and have Sayori drop some huge reveal on me, and it was great. And I have no idea if this was intentional or not, but it was just really well put together, even if by accident. Number 6, I admit that I was not as lost in this path as I was in Sayori's path. But still, the whole time I was in it with Monika, I was praying for it not to end. I kind of felt like things were going too slow. I really wanted more time with her. And this was before it was near the end. Even when things were not good, I didn't want it to end. I wanted to be in this, and I wanted it to continue. Now that it's ended, I salute the writers for their choices. I think they did a brilliant ending. I think the Monika path really catered to all the Sayorians, Yurians, and Natsukians who may harbor some degree of resentment for Monika. You guys are totally wrong about that, but that's a whole different conversation. I understand it. I get it why you have resentment for her. Wrong, but I get it. But I hope you're able to find some empathy, or at least some sympathy for her after playing it. A little bit of insight to her. But for us best Dokis are all Dokis, and for us Monikans, I feel empty. Don't get me wrong, it was good. It was a good story. But I lament not getting to explore the closeness with Monika that I got to experience with the other girls on their path. I felt like I need another hour with Monika. Here's my rewrite. Maybe a branching path after the second date to the tower, where non-Monikans can select, I'm glad you're finally happy, see you in school tomorrow. And they get that good platonic ending at the school. And Monikans can select, would you like to stay over at my place, like he asks on the bus and she says no, but she says yes, for a good romantic happy ending at home. Then the fog comes in. As it is, I just wasn't ready to let her go. And I don't think I can replay this route, because the Sayori path, that healed the hurt. The Natsuki path healed the hurt. Yuri path, well, there was resolution. But the Monika path, there's just still hurt. And, yeah. Thanks again to the makers of this mod. I'm very grateful for what you created and being able to experience it. And thank you for all of you who made it this far. If anyone can recommend any other similar mods that may be able to tie up the Monika and Yuri issues that you heard me display, I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Take it easy.